I welcome you all to the 2D to 5D BIM Quantity Surveying Workshop by Samim Ahmed Laskar. Hello, Samim.
Hi, Mr. Adnan.
Yeah. So we will start the session today. We'll start the session by introducing you to the speaker, Samim Ahmed, who is a BTech and Associate RICS, that is Royal Institute of uh, Chartered Surveyors, right? He's a technical manager, MECCSS, from working in Bahrain. Samim is a quantity surveyor with extensive experience in building information modeling and cost management. He has also managed and worked in construction projects on sites and also in offices. Early technology adopter in construction since 2015, BTech in civil engineering from Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, certified BIM-based quantity surveyor and trainer. But apart from this, Samim has also worked in Nagpur as well. I hope some people are here in this session from Nagpur also. He has worked on Ram Jhula as well. Now currently he is working in Bahrain and he's utilizing the automations which is happening in the BIM industry. So I welcome you all for the session by Samim Ahmed. Yes, Samim, we welcome you all. Can you start the session?
Yes, I would like to. I'm glad to do that. Good. Thank you very much for joining us. Just to make sure, am I audible and the screen sharing is perfect, Mr. Adnan?
Yes, Samim, you are clearly audible and the screen is perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right, so thank you, Mr. Adnan, for such a great introduction. I really loved it. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you to 2D to 5D BIM-based quantity surveying workshop. On behalf of iWorkstation, let me start with extending greetings to you all. Before we get started, just a little bit about housekeeping, and I would really want to make it as interactive as possible. So I'll just turn on my camera here, make sure that everything is okay.
Yeah, it's visible.
All right, so that is it. Yeah, so a little bit about questions. You can ask me questions throughout the presentation at any point of time. After each topic, I will address the questions. So you can put your questions down in the chat box on UI screen. And we also have a Q&A part at the end of the presentation. So I will be actually addressing those questions that you posted in. Okay, so without further ado, let's get some content. Let me give you a quick rundown of workshop topics and how it's going to benefit participants today. The workshop is going to run for today and tomorrow, as you know, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So I would really appreciate your presence throughout the duration. And, so the topics, let's just get right into the topic now. We have in day one, practical approaches of BIM-based quantity surveying. So what we're going to look at in our first day of workshop. We will start with need analysis and introduction of 5D BIM. So inside of QS whole workflow, how BIM is actually getting involved and how it is actually benefiting us. We'll look into detail on that. And then we will get ahead with QB cost integrated cost management in terms of cost management of a project, how QB cost is actually helping out. So QB cost, I will get into details of what is QB cost and in a while. And then we will look much more in detail of methods of measurement. Okay. After that, we will get into details of BIM-based quantity surveying. All right. So in our day two, obviously, I believe that there are many Revit users inside of our participants today. So we will actually utilize a Revit or IFC model in our quantity takeoff workflow. We will also look into details of how do we generate rebar quantities. So really important stuff with regards to reinforcement. And then we will look into details of rebar standard measurement rules in different countries throughout the world. Also, we will get into details of how rebar 3D visualization actually helps us. Okay. We'll also look at different training programs settled there throughout the duration. And then we will finally end with Q&A and some announcement, as I mentioned before. Okay, so that is about the all topics that we're going to look throughout our workshop. So if you stay with us until the end of the workshop, you are expected to get few benefits, which are right here. Okay. So in terms of learning, you will get access to Glodon Online Learning Academy, which is basically 5D BIM Academy, where you'll be able to learn different tools regarding quantity surveyors, BIM integration in their workflow. So you will have lifetime access to that. That's going to be free. And then you will also receive certificate of participation in our BIM QS workshop. On the top of it, you are also getting knowledge in regards to 5D BIM, which is for the quantity surveyors. And then from iWorkstation, you will get concession in different learning platforms regarding the BIM QS total topic. So just the benefits, if you just look at efficiency in your current workflow, you will actually learn tools which are going to help you to increase efficiency in your current workflow of QS. Also, we're going to get connected to different people throughout the workshop. So that's another benefit there. So these are the benefits that you are actually obtaining by attending this workshop for the 2 days, right? So and finally, a clear picture on being a student, whether you want to start a career in QS and get yourself equipped with skills that you need in the industry. Also, if you are a professional, then you will learn different ways of enhancing your QS practices. So that benefit involves there. Okay, so it looks like we have really great turnout today. I dropped some questions or topic that you are interested in. I would really appreciate that. I would take that into account as I move along with the topics. So let's get started. Oh yes, before we get started, let's understand a little bit about our participants today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a very, very quick question polls. So it's going to be only one question for you. So please give your honest response. Just put in your selection, and that would let me know who are there in the room. So I will start the polls right now, and this is going to stay for 2 minutes. So feel free to just put your answer. Okay, so you should be able to see the polls on your screen. All you need to do is just choose the option that you are from. So that will enable me to understand our participants. It's like 1 minute should be enough. We have just one question. So I believe this is it. So I'm going to end the poll. If you answered the poll, I really appreciate it. So here's the poll result. We have 48% students, which is great. And then civil engineers, we have 56% of our total participants. We also have quantity surveyors, great to see them again, 4% of them. And then we have contract manager, 8% of our total participants today. Really, really great involvement there. So I appreciate your presence. I would ask you to get into it, ask me questions. Let's make it interactive. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll here. Okay, so as I was showing the results, so this is the result that we have. Okay, so meanwhile, you can also make sure that you have a noise-free place and a microphone to ask questions and have discussions. So, that's something just to put in words up front. Okay, so let's just close this. Okay. All right, so enough talk about overview and all of those stuff. So without further ado, let's get started with global BIM adoption. Okay, so you can see different countries are at different stages in regards to adoption of BIM technologies. So we're looking at, for instance, United States mandatory in public projects since 2008. Okay, in India, BIM is used increasingly. It's increasing rapidly, and in Europe, any EU-funded project must use a BIM-based software. Okay. In UK, however, it's mandatory for the public sector projects since 2016. In Bahrain, here we are, gradually improving, trying to get into the market. showing people's benefits of BIM, but it's predominantly used at the moment by architects for the most part. In Qatar, however, it's mandatory for public projects since 2008. Similarly, in UAE, any project that has got more than 40 story that must use BIM-based workflow, and that is from 2016. Okay, so in Singapore, similarly, 2010, you have got this year roadmap, at least 80% of the construction industry to use BIM by 2015. Okay, that's all news. So hopefully they got up to 80% of them. And then Australia, mandatory for Queensland for the public infrastructure projects over 50 million since 2019. So it looks like the world is moving towards that direction. So are we ready for that? That's the question. Okay, let's get right into the benefits. Okay, so here in this slide, we are looking at how we differentiate between a traditional workflow versus a BIM-based workflow and how it's going to benefit us. So we are basically looking at more into details of the different workflows that we have in our current construction industry. So when it comes to traditional CAD, I mean, no explanation required. Most of us are using our traditional CAD softwares from a long time. And I believe that is the case. And then if we look at 3D modeling, which is just the geometric shape, but that involves the process of creating, graphical or non-graphical information and sharing this information in a common data environment where you have different stakeholders sharing information from their side as well, getting everything in a central place. And then you get to the actual BIM, where you have either 3D or 4D or 5D or 6D BIM model. So what comes in 4D? So 4D includes the time there. So it's adding the equation, the time in the equation. So you have information in the form of scheduling data, for instance, and then planning in construction works. So that is coming under 4D. And then we get to the 5D, which is what we're going to look at today, which is enabling us to extract accurate cost information from a BIM model, or to hold all of this information in a central place. Okay. And finally, we have 6D BIM, sometimes referred as integrated BIM or iBIM, which is again inclusion of information to support facility management and operation to drive better business outcomes. This is the complete set of BIM models in regards to different dimensions. But how it's going to help us? That's the question. So if you look at research, one of the research published in 2020 January, that says from RICS, Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, that says building information modeling can help quantity surveyors to speed up the estimation process by supporting the use of new rules of measurement, which means that whether we like it or not, the industry moving forward to that direction. So either we are early adopters or we take time in making decisions. So that's what we're gonna look into details of. Right. So that's really specific to that. But then now we are getting into details of how, in practical cases, how BIM applications are happening throughout the world. All right. So at different work stages of your project, how you are implementing the BIM. I would appreciate any of the interruption by Mr. Adnan if you have any questions so far, or if you're getting something from any of our participants. I'd really appreciate that. Starting with the design verification, however, we have you can verify design at a very early stage of your project if you have a BIM workflow. So you can save a lot of expense by speeding up the process of design in some sort. And then you have a 3D visual model with a lot of coordinates and informations in it. So that's visualization aspect there. And then talking about coordination, we will look into details in the software that we are going to look at today, how it coordinates between different departments, for instance, different stakeholders, and making sure that everyone is connected to a central information model. Okay. Of course, it's helpful in drawing production. That's there. The quantity estimation. So this is the part we are actually really focusing on today, getting into detail of how BIM is playing a great role in providing solutions to different cost management platforms. Okay, we will look into details of quantity surveyors challenges in our traditional workflow, and how construction management is also helpful in BIM workflow. So once you have a BIM model with information fed in it, it's going to help you throughout the construction life cycle as well. All right. So let's just get into the BIM integration in project. Let's assume that we started with BIM in a particular project. Right from the planning stage, you can have different level of information or level of details, and then you start building up your BIM model from the planning stage, and then you get to the concept stage. You have the BIM model for different information, and throughout these stages, you are actually making sure that you are getting into the right direction in regards to the architectural model as well as the structural model, at the same time the MEP, so clash detections and all of those stuff. You get into the design and engineering, there the BIM is playing a great role there. And then you get to the bid and award, where the tendering is happening, the bidding is happening, and then finally got to the place where somebody owned the project. And after that, there is fabrication and construction, which is basically the actual execution of the project. And at that stage, you have all of these informations right from the planning stage fitted inside of a model. So that's, again, if you automate that, it's going to give you a simulation view of what's happening on site with the 4D scheduling. So if you can integrate that, that's a great news. That's gonna give us a total automated, paperless workflow of total construction management there. And finally, we have operate and manage. So during the operation stage, once the building is completed, that is, again, really helpful because it gives you detailed information of, let's say, which element is at what location. For instance, an MEP pipe is going through a wall, so you can then, get to details of where exactly it is to locate that. After that, we have utilize and optimize. Obviously, it's kind of I already spoke about it, really good information model. If you have an information model, you are actually speeding up the process of different facility management and automating systems inside of your building space. Okay, that brings us to the dimensions of BIM. So obviously we spoke about it, but just to have an understanding of how it's actually getting into equation of our topic for today. So we're looking at 3D shape, which is, again, geometric shape. And then you have 4D scheduling, where the time is getting into there. And then you have 5D estimating, where cost is getting involved. 6D sustainability. And finally, we have facility management application coming under 7 dimension. Right, so that's there. I am just going through the slide a little bit faster. It's because we want to get into the actual theme. We want to get into the software, get to have and a hands-on experience of how the system actually works with regards to different information. Okay, so we are looking into details of BIM-based quantity takeoff. All right. So obviously, benefit-wise, we can go on talking about the benefits, but that's not what we are doing here. So it's, the detailed information related to the quantity takeoff or cost estimation that we are actually looking at. So the whole point of what we're going to discuss is how BIM has involved in quantity surveying over the last number of years, and show how different softwares, tools could actually make it possible. So in here, you can see that the automated system is giving you quantities and then allowing you to trace back the quantities inside of your model. Okay.
Samim, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
Question from one of our participants, Rajesh Shinde, and
All right.
to ask how he can club architectural and structural model further ready for quantity takeoff. I think the main question is how he can link the architectural and the structural model together. So you are mentioning this is basically for the civil engineers or the people who are quantity surveyors. So the main question is like how architectural model as well as structural model can be linked together and extracted, and we can extract the quantity from it. Is it possible?
Absolutely possible. Really great question from Mr. Rajesh. So yeah, something we call it as merging. So again, different terms being used throughout the industry. But what we tend to do as QS is basically one team of QS works on only architectural elements, so they have a complete architectural model. However, on the other side, you have a structural model being done by another team of QS, and then we merge together, make it a federated model, run the calculation, get the quantities out of it. So you can have different workflows based on your actual implementation. So you can divide this team wise, and then you can actually merge all together and get the quantities in one place.
Right. So MEP can also be linked up with the like QB cost. Is it that only structural or architectural can be linked up, as MEP can also be performed, or MEP can be modeled as well? Is that the feature with QB cost?
Yes, absolutely. It is there. So MEP function is there. It basically identifies from the legends and it builds up automatically a BIM model. But the ultimate goal is to get the quantities and then link all together. Yes, there is software for that under QB cost. But at the moment, we're not going to look into MEP. I'm sorry about that. I'm a civil engineer, so not really have much information on MEP. Hopefully we can cover it at some times later. But what happens is that basically you have a MEP team, you have a structural team who is doing the structural modeling of the elements, and then you have rebar calculation done by the structural team as well. On the other hand, you have the architect team who's building up the architect model. You merge all together, get the quantities in one place. But we don't normally recommend to go ahead with a single model, get your quantities done, and then you merge together once the project is up and running.
Right. And it's not actually essential to actually make a model in Revit and then transfer it to QB cost, making a cumbersome intelligent model which we make in a Revit, right? So it's not at all required. We just need the plans, and then it will automatically convert it into the complete model, right? Am I right?
That is where absolutely you are 100% right. That is the point. Yes, you don't have to have a BIM model in order to run the calculation. All you need is 2D drawings. That is it. As a QS, you need a good quality drawing, and the software is automating the process. So the software is building up the BIM model. And this automation we have been looking for a long time, to be honest. In current industry workflow, this is a really, really helpful tool where it's identifying the elements for you, building up the BIM model automatically, all in few tools. You are just using few tools, and then once the BIM model is ready, that is it. Your calculation is done, because it has again automation process for rules, the deductions, all the calculations inside of it. This is your question, Mr. Rajesh. Can you confirm?
Yeah, he just confirmed that even the further questions, like he has the same question. So yeah, we can.
Okay. All right. So let's continue. I really appreciate your questions and your involvement. Looks really good. Okay, so let's talk about evaluation of quantity surveying. I don't know how much we know, but obviously I'm pretty much sure that most of our participants today already know about all of this stuff, because we have been to universities, we learned all of this stuff, and we started with manual quantity takeoff. To be honest, if I talk about myself, when I was in university, I was doing the manual quantity takeoff, things like this with pen and paper. You can call the ruler is there, the scale, and then you start drawing the 2D drawings on a really big table. So that's where we were. But obviously, along with time, we actually had the 2D takeoff software in the market at that time, but we had to learn from the scratch. Now, talking about manual quantity takeoff, where you use basically pen and paper, very much traditional. That was happening back in 60s or before that. After that, obviously, Autodesk came in picture, very popular software, and then they started building up the 2D CAD and allowing different AEC professionals to start utilizing those tools. And then eventually, you have got into a place where you have 2D ready-made drawings available with you, and you start doing the measurements from there and do your quantity takeoff. So materials takeoff, quantity takeoff, we do all of this stuff right from that 2D drawing at that stage. Up until now, we are doing the same thing. But then BIM quantity takeoff came in picture. And then now in construction 4.0, which is the industrial revolution happening, you can argue about the efficiency, okay, in regards to BIM versus the 2D takeoff, which means that if you have a BIM model, you are saving up a lot of time because you are automating basically the process and storing the information accessible to everyone, whomever obviously you give the permission, and it's visually rich, which means that it's good for presentation as well. So it's integrating a whole team of QSs in one common platform. Because to be honest, as a QS, we tend to work in different ways. And then if I work on a particular project, my colleague may not understand that unless I make him understand by going to various details. But if you have a BIM model, then obviously informations are right in front of your eyes. So yeah, in that regard, that's where we are. Okay, let's look into details of what we get out of the BIM-based software versus the traditional 2D and all of those that we looked at. So when it comes to traditional workflow, obviously, most of the companies nowadays are also doing the similar thing. And I really appreciate that they are taking time nowadays and trying to get involved after coronavirus pandemic. So yeah, people are trying to save money here and they're saving time, and time is money, to be honest. So we can argue on that all day. But traditional method, you have step one, you read the drawing, that's everywhere, and then you start doing the measuring the length and tabulate numbers, and you start creating formulas, deductions, and then you generate reports. So you are getting involved in 5 different steps along the route of quantity survey. When it comes to 2D, any 2D software, you can name them. In the market, there are various softwares which does 2D takeoff. And if you get an approach with those softwares, you are still doing 4 different steps. So you're going ahead with reading drawings, measuring with 2D software, different length, width, height, and then you are getting into creating formulas and reductions inside of your Excel probably. And then finally, you are getting the reports out of it. So it's again getting into all of these different steps. And then finally, we have BIM. Okay. Well, what's so great about BIM? Let's have a look. We have 3 different steps only. You read the drawing, and then BIM software, which you are utilizing at the moment, is reading the drawings as well. Oh, that's really great. So the software is gonna read the drawing, give you identified result, and then if you are happy, you can go ahead with it, or you can do adjustments, modification as you like, and then you get into the final step of generating reports out of it. So that's your quantity stuff. So I can't go more on that. I mean, the BIM based workflow is eliminating all of these different steps of getting into details with manual stuff or using different tools, because it's doing it automatically for us. So look into details inside of the software. Okay. Hopefully we have got few slides to go. I'd really like to show you the actual software, how it works. So quantity surveyor, if you are a quantity surveyor, so you already know how it goes with different challenges and problems that you face every day in your work. If we, in the pre-contract stage of a particular project, you have the tender stage where the tendering is happening. If you are on the client side or the contractor, you are still getting involved into a lot of things, and that should be as efficient as you can make it. So that's there. And then in post-contract stage, again, the construction stage. So there again, you have the scheduling, you have the planning. So you have to make sure that within the for each work breakdown structure, you have a particular time frame. So you want to maintain that. So there is also a speed up processes there. And then finally, you get to the final account. So that's like, okay, the final step. But then you have all of these different challenges within that process, improving takeoff time and efficiency. The software gives us a solution to that. So it makes it 60 to 70% quicker takeoff time. It allows efficient and accurate takeoff, right? And then when you have handling project variations, obviously, when you have a revision in the design, then the software is doing all of it by itself. So you have different measurement rules or methods of measurement inside of the software, so which is already embedded. SMM7 and RM2, POMI, Indian Standard Method of Measurement, IS 1200, all of those are already inside of the software. So it's making sure that the rules are getting applied to the BIM model. And then checking results. So when it comes to checking result of your work, you have view expression, so which is giving you access to the actual expression or the formula being used for determining different quantities. And then again, you can get into details of various reductions that is coming under 3D functions. So you'll be able to get to see in a visualized format the reductions, how the reductions are taking place between different elements. And then there is reversely check, so which basically traces back to the model, shows you exactly from where the quantities came, and then you don't have any problem with that because you have the quantities and you can directly link the quantities to the model. It shows you, okay, from this particular element, this quantity came out. So really a powerful tool. And then it standardizes basically the takeoff process, which I mentioned before. If you have a BIM software working together with your colleagues, and then they all know that where are the informations. So you don't necessarily have to explain each time you do some work in your own way. Okay, we're looking at handling different file types. All right. So specifically, we are going to use a particular tool today, which is QBcost. And inside of QBcost, you can actually import IFC if you have already a BIM model from any other software in the market. You have a DWG 2D drawing, you can import that and start working on that. PDF drawing, yeah, that's fine. Scan PDF drawing, which could be a bad quality drawing, a really bad quality scan PDF as well. You can do the takeoff from that as well. So you have the JPEG file for that. Okay. Takeoff difficulty in complex structure. So the software has got a lot of arcs, loop, different modification functions. So utilizing them, you can actually build up various detailed complex shape, and based on that, the software is again doing the calculation. Now, what's important to notice is that the software is giving us the access to get to know how the calculation took place. That's brilliant. I mean, you can get into the details of the calculation, then you can figure out, okay, how actually the calculation took place. We'll look into the software really in detail. Few other major challenges like tight deadlines, long hours, frustration due to repetitive work. The software is introducing you to the digital BIM Takeoff, which is gonna take less time and complete under some time. Okay, so that's there. Okay, so let's start with the topic for today. It's gonna be I'm gonna use a tool which is QBcost. It's a complete suite of software, and there we will start with one particular software, which is TAS. Okay, and then we will also look into details of the various other softwares along the way. Okay, so let me introduce to you the BIM-based centralized quantity takeoff and estimation software, QBcost. So what is QBcost? QBcost is a suite of software that covers quantity takeoff for architecture and structural elements, what we call as TAS, which can be seen in the first icon, and then you have takeoff for rebar, which is TRB, and finally you have estimation and tender management software, which is TBQ, and then e-tender platform. Obviously, when you get to the pricing and estimation, then you are kind of dealing with the tendering department, and then you can integrate the tendering department within that flow. So you have the automation system where you are probably sending sending out inquiries, getting quotations, and doing a lot of evaluations inside of it. So in today's presentation, we're going to look into details of TAS, which is takeoff architecture and structure, and the TBQ in particular. Different project work stages we are utilizing BIM during preparation, design, pre-construction, construction use. And again, different things are happening along the way. You have the first cost estimate, order of cost estimate, formal cost plan 1, 2, pre-tender estimate, bill of quants that you're preparing at this stage of pre-construction, and then you're getting into the tendering stage. Okay. At the same time, you're preparing the schedule of work schedules. Again, quantification is happening everywhere. And then you're getting all of this information either in PDF or Excel at the moment. But what you can do is you can integrate these files with the software tools that are available with you, or you can automate the process by using only the softwares. So two options are available with you. And then during the actual execution of project, you have also the same suite of software which are helping out either with design information or with the cost information, which are already been associated with those models. And then finally, when it comes to use of that particular facility that you built up, again, information-rich models are available there. So throughout the process, we are using TBQ, we're using design softwares, AutoCAD, Revit, along with that TBQ, and then we are integrating inside of the workflow the design softwares with the total set of software during the tender stage. And later on, we are also integrating the similar stuff during construction and after that while using the facility. Okay, just going a little faster is because we want to get into the software. This is the complete workflow of the cubic cost. So how it works basically, you have 2D drawings, which could be PDF, DWG, or image file. You have 3D model, which could be IFC or directly a native Revit file. So if you have got a Revit model, that is also the software also supports that file. So all you need to do is just import these files, whichever you have, and then the software is going to build up the BIM model, which is a smart BIM model, and that is going to be generated by the software. And that's again interoperable because it's sending up information between different sorts of software like TAS, TRB, and TME. So TME is for MEP works, and then TRB is for Rebar, and TAS is for architecture and structural elements. All right, so it integrates in a common platform. It has got different rules of measurement, as I mentioned before. By one click, you can do the calculations after you generate the model. Now, when I say one click, you generate the model, it basically means that if you have 2D drawings, the software is building up the model, which means that you are getting the quantities after the model. When it comes to the quantities, we got the quantities out of the software, and then we can integrate that with our pricing or estimation software, which is TBQ, and e-tender platform. So for BOQ preparation, cost estimation, tendering and bidding, and pricing and BOQ library management, all of those stuff. And benefit-wise, what we are obtaining throughout this process is we are doing the measurement 4 times faster than traditional measurement, and that has been backed by different case studies. And then you have checking result, which is again 10 times faster than just traditional checking of quantities when you present to someone. And then you have accuracy level, which is 98.8%. Okay, so TAS, TRB, both of the softwares working together and giving us quantities and fitting it into the estimation software TBQ. So that's quantity takeoff and BIM costing integrating together and making it 5D. Okay, as I mentioned, the file types. So you have all of these different file types. Either you have hard copy, scan copy drawing, you have the CAD drawing or vector PDF drawing, which is just converted from CAD. And then you can let the software identify all of these different information from the drawing, and it's going to build up the BIM model automatically. So that's where the actual automation function comes in. And then you have either you have an IFC or Revit model, you can import that, and then the software is going to apply the rule in it. All you need to do is just check the 3D measurements if everything is proper, and do a little verification in regards to overlaps, clashes, and all of those stuff. So once the model is verified, then you can just proceed with the calculation by one-click calculation. So that is it. And then you get the quantity reports out of the software. Okay, that brings us to the actual workflow of the software. So again, as I mentioned, it's integrating all of them to the TBQ software. So TBQ is again tender management software, which is working on a common platform between these softwares. So we'll look into details inside of software, how actually it works together. Okay, in terms of measurements, you have, as I mentioned, SMM, British Standards, NRM, CP97, Australian, Hong Kong, Eurocode, and then obviously you have a lot of others. So whichever you want to go ahead with, the software already has all of those information. So you can just choose which measurement rules that you are implementing in your project. So for instance, IS 1200, so Indian measurement rules, so that you can actually utilize. NRM is there, SMM is there, and a lot of other standard methods of measurement for the quantities. So this is what makes it unique, basically. You know, you have a lot of other softwares in the market who does the quantities, but then you have to get those informations out of it and then put it in Excel and start working on your way out to putting again formulas to do the reductions, because reduction is not automated, which is why this software is unique, is because it has got all the rules inside of it. So you have access to the rules, you can change them, but the important point is that it's doing it automatically. Okay, with that being said, let's just get into the software and start with the
There's a question
Yes,
from
Mr.
one of the participant, like he wants to ask like how many people are actually using QBcost in India, and what do you think is the future of QBcost in comparison with Revit? Because Revit is also used for taking out the quantities, but if
Yeah.
you look at QBcost, that's another tool. So companies may find it difficult to bear the cost of one license for Revit, then another license for QBcost. What do you want to say about it?
Okay, perfect question. I would just like to say that you know, there are various companies who are using Revit as well as QBcost. So there is a clear difference. If there isn't any difference, then they wouldn't have gone for that. So to start with, I would say that the QBcost is intended only for the quantity takeoff, which means that everything that you can think of around the quantities, that is what happening inside of the software. It is not meant for design. It is not meant for, you know, building up a really nice looking building. So the ultimate idea is that if you have a model which could be in Revit, or you build up inside of the software, you can go ahead with that. With regards to the users in India, we have a lot of companies. I'm not sure if I put in any slide on that, but you know, Mr. Adnan can actually get you those details, I believe.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah,
Let's just
with the project.
the project now. I believe you can see my screen. Okay, there it is.
Yes.
All right, so this is task here, QBcost task C2. As an overview, I'm going to start with looking into the different tools on our interface, and then we will get into details of, you know, which tool where we can utilize them as per our required functionalities. So under each tab, you can see there are different tools, and these are pretty much same as, you know, any other CAD software in the market, which is what makes it really user friendly. And then you have on the right side, you have the drawing manager. So as a QS, why I like the software, I'll get into the details of that, because I have used, you know, various other softwares along the line. But what I found unique in this software, I will tell you in a while. You have then drawing manager, where you import basically different drawings, which are only 2D drawings, by the way. So you can have either you can have either CAD file, or you can have PDF, which could be a vector PDF or a scan PDF, as I mentioned before, or you can have a scan file as well. All right, so what's important to notice is that as soon as you import different drawings, you can actually get access to a whole lot of 2D things as well. I mean, the software is for BIM, but then you also have access to drawing CAD lines and, you know, deleting some stuff, making modifications, all of those stuffs are available as well. Down here, you have layer manager. So, you know, obviously, if you have different layers of your current drawing, you can turn on and off them, you know, as you require throughout the process. All right, so on the left side, you have different preloaded elements, which are again parametric elements, in other words. So you have all of these parametric elements preloaded in the software under navigation bar. So you can start working on a particular project, and the software is giving you all of these informations which are standard. And then in here you have element list, where you'll be able to list out all the elements of the building. Obviously, the software is doing it for you, then it's getting listed automatically. And then you get into details of its properties under attribute editor window, where you'll be able to, of course, edit, view, all of those stuff. We have 3 primary tabs. So we start with modeling, basically the BIM model, and then we look at the BOQ, or we link the quantities with BOQ, and then we proceed with the report. at the end. And then we have also obviously the main interface is this one where we have the working space for building up the BIM model. Finally, we have the status bar down here. It's just same as AutoCAD. So that is it. And then we have the shortcut keys. So just to talk about that, all the shortcut keys are same as AutoCAD. So that is a great point. You have L for line, PR for trim, EX for extend, and all of those stuff. It's all similar. It's because the software has got research and development integration with Autodesk. So they make sure that everything is working together. All right. So that is that. Now let's get started with one particular element. Let's just start with column. Okay. As you can see, I have imported a few of the drawings here, some floor plans and typical framing plan, just to show you just a small model to give you an idea of how actually the system works, and then you can start questioning on different file formats and stuff. So the first thing first, we want to let the software identify all of these elements for us. So which means that it should be automatic. Okay, let's just get into details. We have 3 different tools for that. So using these 3 different steps, you'll be able to actually build up the BIM model automatically. So if I just say, okay, pick sideline, okay, and then it gives me access to free select by layer or select by color. Okay. So if you have layer inside of your drawing, which means that columns are in one layer, it could be not, hundreds and thousands of columns, that's a separate topic, but all of them are in one layer. So the software is identifying all of them and doing the quantification automatically. Okay, so that's there. And then you have select by layer. In case if you don't have, select by color. In case if you don't have layer in a particular drawing, you can still, if all the columns are in same color, then you are going to go ahead and just select that column. And based on the color, the software is identifying again. Free select is quite useful if you just want to select one by one and just say, okay, I want to build up BIM model for that particular column and other element. So let's just go ahead and just try to pick up any of the sideline, as it says, okay, pick up the sideline. So I'm going to pick up any sideline, okay, and then right click for confirmation, and then pick level, any level that I can pick up of these columns. Because they are in the same layer, they should get selected, and then that is it. And then third step is auto identify. So by doing so, the software identified 45 numbers of column from my drawing. It listed them out right here under element list. And then I get to see my 3D view as well. So let's have a look at that. So this is my dynamic view. I get to see all of these different details here. So only in 3 simple steps, the columns are done. At this stage, if you just want to run the calculation, you just press calculate, get the quantities out of it. This is it. Now, obviously, you might want to just check, swivel around, get to see what's happening inside of the 2D lines. So you get to see that from the 2D lines, different shapes are being generated by the software automatically. Okay. Now, there could be a common question, which is about the height, because obviously we are dealing with the levels or different heights. So if you look back to the project settings here, you have different zones, which is basically, block A, block B, different buildings maybe in your project, or you have different zones, A, B, C, D, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then for each one of these zones, you have a particular levels. So you can have, let's say, basement, a foundation, and a ground floor, and then you can start creating different floors. So this floor setting setup that we do initially when we initiate a project. So we start a project. The first thing that we do is we just set up the elevation of the entire project. So different levels are being generated here. This again works just like Excel. Okay, you can drag down information, you can put in different information, you can edit them, and then it's going to calculate the bottom elevation automatically. And then you just have to make sure that this bottom elevation, okay, is matching with your elevation value. And that is it. So you have got number of floors that you can also put in here, which is the typical floors. So if you have got typical floors, you can then say, okay, I have got 5 numbers of typical floors or 3 numbers and so on. And then in here, you can select a reference floor, okay, which is going to give you access to provide the bottom elevation of your current reference floor. If you have ground floor as a reference floor, which means that the software is expecting you to give you expecting you to provide a ground elevation at the moment. Yeah, based on that, the software is going to calculate the remaining structure as well as the excavation quantities. So really great topic about excavation. When we get into details of that, we'll have a look at that. In here, you can see that there are different categories, and based on these categories, the software is going to then give us classified quantities for each one of them. Now I can have, let's say if I want ground floor, I have the foundation blinding, maybe I have the column, a ground beam. So I'll be able to then choose what concrete grade that I'm using. Obviously here it's just showing in British standard because I'm using the British measurement rules. If you are using Indian standard method of measurement, IS 1200, then it will show you the, the M20, M25, and so on and so forth. So, and then you have concrete categories, the lightweight, self-compacting, and so on. Formwork types, you can choose that for that particular element, by the way, and on that specific flow. And then if you have mortar grade against that particular element, mortar category, this section, however, steel ratio, okay, this one gives you an approximate estimation of steel quantity against per meter cube of concrete. So if you have a ratio of that, you then input that ratio and the software is going to tell you, okay, this is the quantity of steel that you have against per meter cube of concrete. So this is not really much in detail, but if you want to get into details of steel measurements, bar bending schedule, then we have separate software TRB, which we will look in our second day of workshop, so tomorrow. Right, so after you set up this grade setting, you can then say, okay, apply all of this information to different floors. So you can copy it to different floors in case if you are providing that all this information is the same for the rest of the floors. Okay, so that's it about this. So now the answer to the question of height is basically coming from here. The software identified those columns and input a height of the same floor height that we provided, which is 3.3. Now, each one of this column has got a height of 3.3. Let's have a look at that. Okay, how do we actually see the height? If you just get into the properties windows, over here you can see that the top elevation, okay, if I just increase this, 3.3 right here. And then the bottom elevation, which is this plane, is 0.0 at the moment. Okay, if you want to adjust those elevations for a particular element, you can say, okay, you should go 1 meter down, let's say as an example. So it just goes 1 meter down. So similarly, you can adjust all of those stuff. Okay. A lot of information other than the modifications of this kind, you can again narrow it down at the top, which is again getting involved in different softwares nowadays. If you do that, then it just gives you a variable cross section throughout the height. Okay, so that you can do as well. If you want to go ahead with different modification functions, basically, I'm not going in detail. You can provide slopings and stuff, providing angle of inclination, and then you say, okay, and that takes that shape. So yeah, a lot of things. Other than that, as I was talking about parametric, so if you go to the parametric, you have a lot of preloaded shapes available inside of the software. You can then utilize whichever is required in your project. Okay, you can input the information here and then you start working on the project. Okay, now this element list and the information that you feed in the software would then determine the entity, which is the 3D model of that particular element from the 2D drawing automatically by these 3 simple steps. Okay, so it looks good so far. We have the columns, which is done. Okay, let's just go ahead with wall as our next element. Do you have any questions so far, by the way? Could you pick up any question, Mr. Adnan, in regards to this topic?
Yeah, Samim, I was actually thinking, is it possible for the reinforcement detailing as well?
Yes, reinforcement detailing, that is possible, but that is not in this software. And the reason why it is separated is because some of the people are not interested in reinforcement, to be honest. So as a QS, if I just do concrete and shuttering, then somebody else might want to do the rebar. So that is why we have separate software, which is TRB, which is again, you are not necessarily required to build up the BIM model again and again. You can have one model and then you can do the rebar details inside of TRB. So we'll look into details in our upcoming session tomorrow.
Okay, okay. And let's say, Samim, if we select any of the particular column, can you select any one column?
Okay. Yes, sure. Okay, just select any column. Okay.
So if I select any one column, can we see all the details about it, like what exactly the concrete grade we used in it, or any other details we can input it? Is it possible?
Absolutely. Really great question. Yeah, it is possible. So let's just have a quick look on that as you bring up a really great topic. Okay, so the calculation, you can do the calculation for all the elements. It's just making sure it runs basically between 10 to 20 seconds, depending on what the complexity of your structure. So if you get into details, you get to say that this selected column that I just selected has got a volume of this much, which is done by the area, sectional area multiplied by the height, and then you have the area of formwork where you have the deduction for in situ slab, which is not happening at the moment, but it's happening because I actually modeled the slab beforehand just to save little time. Which is why it's showing us, okay, there is a deduction happening as well in terms of area. And then if you want to look into details of the reduction, you get to see in 3D view, this is my column, okay? And I get to the area of formwork, and there is this slab. Obviously, as I mentioned, I modeled the slab just to save time, just so that we don't repeat the steps again. So this is the original quantity of our shuttering. As you can see, it just shows a hollow inside and then really a formwork shape, in other words. And then you get into details of reduction of this side slab. Okay, this portion is getting deducted for the formwork, and then reduction of that side as well. So this portion is also getting deducted for the formwork. So really in detail, you get to see this. And then on the top of it, as you are looking for the detailed quantity view, you can actually get into different details as well. For instance, the categories. So you can do it by material. Okay, so let's just have a look at that. Based on the concrete grade, you can filter out the quantities that you have. So for instance, here we're looking at, let's say, ground floor, different columns got placed there, their sizes, and what's the volume of concrete, what's the area of formwork, how many numbers are there on that floor. And then you have weight of rebar. And this weight of rebar, again, approximate estimated quantity. And then you have the perimeter of it. So various details, whichever is required in your project, you can utilize those quantities. Otherwise, it just stays there. Okay, we will, as we move along, we'll look into details of the calculation at the end as well. So that will give us a clear picture of how it works. Thank you.
Right. So Samim, let's say if someone wants to, like from this CAD drawing, it can automatically model all the elements which is overlaid on the CAD, right? Now, if we want to export this entire model into Revit, so if we export it maybe through IFC or maybe some other plugins or something, but is it possible to store or restore the actual information about that particular element, or how that model will come? Will that model be coming in the Revit as a generic, or will it come as the actual column or actual beam as we have elements in the Revit? How it will come?
Okay, so basically you can export it in IFC. You don't have any, of course, export in Revit because it's not Revit, but you can import a Revit model. So if you export it in IFC, it actually contains all of this information. All these informations gets into the details of, let's say, the type or the materials inside of your Revit, or you have the family is a complete separate topic, but then it gets all of those informations. It retains those informations, in other words. So if you export the model in IFC, which is what we will do it in our upcoming session, and then it shows us, yes, it is containing all of those informations. Yes, you can use this model in Revit and work your way out with other information, and then you can start working on that. So IFC export is always possible. And then you have native formats as well. I mean, you can share between the software of QBCost by exporting them, and then save as picture is basically the entire 3D model in 3D view.
Right, understood. Like I think like tomorrow's the main topic would be the IFC export and the converter. Like you would be explaining about those things, right? Tomorrow.
Yes, correct. That is correct.
Can you also like show? Will you be showing now or later on the completed a complete model which you have made?
Yes, I will show it in a while. So let's just proceed with 2 or 3 elements, and then we are done. I will just go ahead with maybe 2 more elements.
Sure, Samim. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So wall, again, architectural elements. You can have structural wall, architectural wall. That really comes down to how you want to do the identification. So let's just say we have this floor plan and we want to go ahead with masonry wall. Okay, we could have gone for the concrete wall, by the way, but normally we don't have that many concrete walls in a project on typical floors or on the ground floor, unless it's a basement floor. That's a separate topic. So you select the sideline. That is what you do. And then you have doors and windows sideline. Okay, I'm going to pick up the doors and windows. Watch what happens. The selection is done. Okay, and then finally, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, auto identify. Did you draw the column beforehand, which is yes? Okay, so that is it. The identification is done. I have all the walls in place. I mean, I could have a really big drawing with a lot of information, different wall sizes, and it automatically identifies. And what's important to notice is that it's actually recording all of these informations right here. You have 200 mm wall, 60 mm, you have then 100 mm wall, which is again getting into details of thickness. Is it an interior wall, exterior wall? What kind of material is it? Is it a brick, block, stone, light panel, glass? You can then choose what material it is and what category it's falling into. Is it a structural wall, retaining wall? Different categories are there. And what we enable by selecting all of these different information is that we then get a classified quantity of information from the software. All right. Let's just do a little bit of openings, which will give us a little good overview of the current model. Okay, so when it comes to opening like doors or windows or just a wall opening, what happens is that the software gives you one extra option, which is the software is extracting information or pulling in data from your schedule. Now, the schedule could be either in Excel, it could be in PDF, it could be in your drawing itself, which is CAD file. So let's just open up one schedule that I have here. Okay, I have this schedule of doors and windows, which is pretty much in a standard format that we always use. It gives me all of the details of different shapes and sizes of different doors and windows, and then it is listing out all of them right here. We have the name and the size. Let's just go ahead with the function that we have here, which is identify schedule. All right, all the way I'm gonna just select the information that I have, and the software should pull in all these informations for me. Okay, so I go all the way down and just make selection and then right click. So what happened is that the software, and I can then obviously double check if I would like to do that. And so that's there. But what's important to notice is that the software identified all of these different names along with their type and their sizes. Now you could have width on one column, height on another column, and different other formats. And you could have just identify that as well and just select those column headings as well. So all these doors, windows are being identified. So what we do, we just say identify. That is it. My doors and windows are done. We are just one step away from it. We go back to our floor plan and just let the software know what are the names of them, because now we have every information available. So I just pick up the name of doors and windows or the level of it or the tag of it, just right click and then auto identification. That is it. All my doors, windows got placed in their proper position. Okay, now if I turn on my walls, I turn on my columns, this looks much better. So I have every opening that you can think of in here with their detailed information. Now, the question could be, what about the sill height of this particular window? Let's say we are looking at. Now, if you look into details and just make selection for the window, if I just select that window, I get to see height above floor, which is 900 millimeter. I can manually just make changes saying, okay, drop it down to 500. So it just goes back to 500. But normally the software just considers a default value of 900 unless you have this information in your schedule. Have I had those informations in my schedule, the software would have automatically feeding into different openings, the height above floor. So always make sure about those little details if you are dealing with this. So that is it about the openings. You have lintel. Very quickly, if I just show you, you can provide a lintel based on the conditions, and conditions are, you can provide, let's say, the opening width, cover every opening which is coming within 3 meters. So this is it. The lintels got placed. Okay. Now I don't want to get into details of any more element. I just, to save time, I modeled the slab, the beam, just to, again, it's following 3 simple steps. You want to create different shapes. You have different shapes under draw tab. You have the arch shape, you have spherical shape, conical shape, sloping, variable section, really goes handy with the sunken slab. So different information tools are there, not going in details because then the time wouldn't allow us to do that. Okay, in terms of staircase, you have different options as well. You have some parametric staircases preloaded in the software. You can use them, right, as per your requirement, or else you can build up by yourself. So there is custom staircase, which basically gives us access to a particular window. In 3D view, we'll be able to put in different information regards to the actual staircase, and then we'll be able to place that in their position. Similarly, finishes, you can do a lot of stuff there. I just did little finishes in this room, as you can see. If I just get back to staircase, I get to see, okay, there is this floor finish, there should be the skirting as well. Okay, so if I just turn off my ceiling finish, I get to see different floor finishes. And then if I turn on my skirting, oops, I didn't do the skirting probably, but yeah, skirting is there. So you can place the skirting in a particular room. This is like a little bit of manual way you are doing, but you can just provide finishes in one click. And what I mean by that, I will just show you in one go, and then we can proceed with the calculation. So this is the family room. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, family room. You can see there are different finishes which are got associated with that family room. And these finishes informations are from schedule. So again, the software identified all of these informations from schedule. We didn't do anything yet. If we had to do something, we could have actually done it by going through details, but for most part, the software does it pretty much well. So one, that is it. All the finishes, everything got applied there. You want to have a look, you can have a look at that. Okay, it considers various details. For instance, here you can see that if I have a wall finishes, it would consider the soffit of beam, side of beam, sides of column, everything in detail. Okay. Okay, so we can go in details more and more, but because of the time, we won't be able to do that. But there is this vertical surface, which is basically giving you access to define various vertical surface for your suspended ceiling, because obviously in a suspended ceiling you have different beautiful shapes, and then you have those cove lights and everything coming around. So you can define those informations inside of it and get the quantities out of it. However, it doesn't get into detail, just to put in consideration detail of how many numbers of lights you need or stuff like that. No, it doesn't get into that. The normal quantity surveying area or perimeter and all of those informations, you can get that. Okay, let's just run the calculation. But before we go there, this is a bad quality PDF drawing. Okay, I've got a foundation plan. I went to my foundation floor. This is my foundation plan. A bad quality PDF drawing. So how to deal with that? And this is the scenario where you have very, very bad quality drawing. It's not just normal PDF. If you have normal PDF, the software identifies those elements. But if you have a bad quality PDF drawing, then you tend to create that element, which is just one click away. You can say, okay, rectangular pad, provide its size, and then you are ready to place them in their position. So let's say here I want to place F4. So I just say, okay, F4 right there. And do I have another F4? Yes. Sorry, F1 that we are looking at. Okay, so F1, all of them got done. Okay. Now if I turn out in 3D view, obviously few of them I did it previously just by following this flow, because to save time. Okay, so all of this information, again, raft, foundation, some pit, different other elements are there preloaded, all of them. And then you can go to blinding and say, okay, I just want to place blinding below all of them. So all pad foundations, I select all of them. And then what's the extension in all 4 sides of your blinding? Thickness is 100 millimeter. What's the extension in all 4 sides? 100 millimeter. Okay, that is good. We have all this information there. So these are the blindings. Okay, let's just run the calculation now because we are running quite tight on time. You can do calculation at any point, as I mentioned before, for the entire building, for one floor, for different elements. That's really up to you. There is one technology called cloud computing, which is going to use the RAM memory of your different systems that are connected through server with your system. So if you turn that on, what's going to happen is that the software will run very, very fast, which means when you perform the calculation, instead of 10 to 20 seconds, it might take 5 seconds for the calculation to really make it faster than 10 seconds. But normally it takes just in between 10 to 20 seconds for running the calculation, depending on how big your structure is or how complex your infrastructure is. Now, in here, let's go ahead with the calculation result that we obtained. We looked at this one before. What I want to show you is this specific function, which is reversely check-in model. Really great function. So if you just click on that, it brings us back to the model and shows us exactly which quantity came from which element. Okay, this quantity came from that element and stuff. And this is again applicable when you start doing the BOQ. So inside of BOQ also you can have a similar function and get back to the model and get to see which bill item has got connected to which quantity. Okay, subtotal, different filter options, not going in detail. You can export it into Excel anytime. Okay, we looked at view expression, but just to have a quick look again, once again on that. So if I just pick up a wall and I say view expression, let me see the expression. How did the calculation took place? Okay, you get to see that this is my wall calculation for volume, length multiplied by the height of wall, thickness of wall, reduction of door, window, column, beam, concrete, lintel. Let's have a look in 3D deduction. Okay, how it looks like there. So we have this particular wall that we selected. Let's just have a look at our original volume of concrete, let's say as an example. So these are the deductions that is happening. This is another deduction of windows. We have got different deductions for columns all around. And then there is deduction for beam, deduction of different lintels on the top of it. So really in detail, and again, it's quite useful for documentation purposes and presenting to higher authorities. So yeah, I'm not going in details with lock, unlock, and 3D measurements and this lock, because these are some of the security functions available in order to make sure that who edits the model and who not. And then this lock represents if you want to edit the 2D drawing or you don't want to do that. So that's there. Let's just run the calculation for the last time before we go to the BOQ part and finish that up with that. Okay, so you can see that there is this measurement settings and measurement tools. What are these two tools? It's basically giving you access to edit those rules. Okay, if you are choosing, let's say IS 1200, it has got different clauses and it's applying to different elements. Now, if you go to measurement settings, you get to see a lot of rules there for it, individual elements. Okay, and these are again inbuilt in the software. So you can go into details and say, okay, I don't like this option, but I want to go ahead with the next option. Again, this is from IS 1200 if you have chosen IS 1200. Export import functions are always there. And then you get to the measurement rules, which is basically giving you relation between different elements. So let's say as an example, if you are looking at deduction of beam in situ from volume of in situ slab, you have different options. If the concrete grade of beam is similar with that of in situ slab, not deduct occupied volume, otherwise deduct it, or just deduct the occupied volume. So you choose whichever you want to go ahead with. Normally, we don't touch it because it follows pretty much well with the quantity surveyors workflow, and also it's from the method of measurement. So that's the biggest part. All right, let's get to the BOQ very quickly. Okay, now that we have all of this information in place, what we can do is we can have 3 different options for building up our BOQ. Either we can import our Excel BOQ, which is available in our project, or we can connect this project with TBQ, tender management, or cost estimation software, or we can build up a BOQ from scratch. So these are all options available with us. Let's just quickly connect it to TBQ and get to see how it works. And we can then get to the question and answers part. All you need to do is just input your details here. It's because the software is going to be utilizing the server that you have. So IP address of the server. And if you are an individual user, then it's going to use your own system. So you have your own system as your server. So that's the difference between these two. But yeah, it gets into detail of that. Now, just to give you an overview of TBQ estimation software, TBQ is a centralized platform. So it sits on your server of your office, or it can sit individually in your PC, just like mine, if I'm a single user. The purpose of having it run, you can have, by the way, a consultant or contractor version. So let's just have a look at contractor version for now. And I can then, these are the list of projects, by the way, that I'm working on currently. So you can just start on any of these projects, and then you can start linking the model here. So what happens is that the purpose of having it run from a server of your company is that we have all of this information in a central location. So what I can see here is the BOQ that I have for this particular project. Okay. There is something called permission setting or user management. What happens inside of this is that it gives you a granular security of giving permissions to different colleagues. So we can have number of QSs who are online, and you are giving permissions what they can do, what they cannot do. Similarly, you have number of estimators. You can see there is 0 there, which means no one is using at the moment. I am the only one admin using the software. Because I said it works in central server, which means that anyone who is using the software, I'll be able to see here. And they can also get access to the same BOQ of the project. Now, let's just quickly do one last thing, which is connect little quantities in our BOQ. So this is a particular BOQ, either I created or I actually identified a PDF or Excel BOQ. Now, really, very powerful tool, identify PDF BOQ, because I couldn't find any tools in the market which actually identifies a scan PDF BOQ and then turns it into an electronic format with 100% accuracy. So this actually retains all the information. Even if you have a scan PDF, very much tilted, bad quality PDF file of your BOQ, the software retains those information. Let's just, connect two softwares together. So again, for making sure that you are actually utilizing the functions by yourself, so the admin will be able to see, okay, who actually did what work at what time. So that again improves improves the security again, and it's quite auditable then. Okay, let's just go ahead and say contractor BOQ. It's not the project. Contractor demo is the project that we're working on. Okay. So what's happening now is that, okay, so it got connected now. You can see that this is my task software, by the way. It's the Takeoff software that we have been looking at for a long time. And then you have TBQ on the other side, which is also showing me the same BOQ. As soon as it got connected, it gave me access to the BOQ that I can see in my pricing or estimation software. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just connect a few quantities here. So let's just say wall 200, 160 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, show me baseline variation quantity as well, in case if I make any changes. And then I go to here, I say, okay, these are my quantities. I'm happy with that. But I'm going to pick up the wall and not going in details with filter option, 200 mm and 100 mm. If you would like, you can do that. You can just drag and drop information, or you can just double click in a specific cell. Do you want to place that? Yes, I want to place that. And then you say show association status, which means the software is showing me in a laminated green color that, okay, this is the quantity which is already connected to the BOQ. Okay, so that again reduces the chances of error, because you get to see which quantity got attached. If you say any quantity, you are confused about this quantity, reverse check model. There it is. It gets back to the model, shows you exactly from where the quantities came. Different MS wall 200, as you can see in the list. Return to BOQ, get us back to the same BOQ option. Can set template, use them for your future project. Now, that's enough information for quantities. Let's just work on these two and say check-in. What's check-in? So check-in is basically sending information from this software to the other software. All right. And then I can get access to this one. I get to see the quantities got reflected here, and it shows me that the quantities came from tasks. Okay, really great. And this is the quantities. So not going in detail with the pricing part, I'm just picking up some random pricing code. You can get into details with that. So I'm just picking up, let's say, some concrete rate here. If you go to the built up unit rates, you have different information in regards to composite material, raw material, labor, equipment, others, and then you have unit rate. So inside of unit rate, you can have a rate code for individual unit rate item, and then inside of that, you have a raw material, labor, equipment, and again, getting into details of different suppliers, which supplier is quoting what price, then you can choose all of this stuff. Price analysis you can do for the market. Okay, let's just get into the BOQ once again. Quickly, we will connect one or two quantities, and we will conclude with that. So BOQ, it's always good to work with multiple screen, but that's not quite presentation friendly, so just bear with me. I'm going to pick up any of these tags and I can just place it here. I can say, okay, this is the rate code, so it adds it there. Okay, that is how you actually connect the quantity, connect the pricing. Now I can see that it gets into details of what's the total of material, labor, equipment. Okay, unit rates. If you get into unit rate details, it again shows you different information about the same picked up rate. Okay, I want to do an analysis to end with. So I'm going to just save my current work as version number, I don't know, 100 something, 113 maybe. I have a lot of versions there, so not sure if that will pick up. Okay, 113, that is one. So version 113, currently I'm working on. What happened is that basically the software saved a mirror of information that we can see right here. Okay, after that I go back to my edit and I say check in once again. Okay, that's fine. Go back to my Takeoff software tasks. Okay, informations remain same here as well. I'm saying version 113 here. So this became my baseline quantity now. Okay, watch what happens when I do any changes in the model. So I go back to my model and I say, okay, I'm going to go to my ground floor as an example, and then I want to pick up this wall and maybe this wall as well. These walls, client didn't like it, so I had to make changes according to the revised drawing. These are gone now. So what we do, we just run the calculation once again, try to figure out, okay, what's happening there. And then as it's a BIM model, everything should be automated. Okay, let's just see what happens. Okay, so the calculation is done. Get back to BOQ. You get to see there is a drop from 460 to 453 now. Okay, let's just check it. So check in, save this information to the other software. Okay, it's 453 point something. So just round figure, you can set precision, that's a separate topic, but this is the current quantity. Let's just go to analysis, set a new version, 114 maybe. Yeah, that got one extra one, that's not a problem. We got to compare between version, and I'm saying compare between 114 versus 113. Okay, let's just have a look at the difference between these two versions. So revised version versus the previous work. It shows me various details in asterisk marks of the star mark. It gets into details of this particular bill item. Quantity got changed from this much to this much. So this much to this much. And then there is this net amount got affected as well because of changes. And the total price also got affected because of the changes. What's my total price at the moment? This is the total cost of my project at the moment. That's the amount. Markup, overhead, all of those different informations are there. Trade-wise analysis, element-wise analysis, report formats, stuff are there. I'm going to conclude with the report part right now. So reports. Inside of Takeoff software, you can get a lot of reports, and that are again customizable. You can edit them, you can create your own. If you want to look at index summary level reports, let's say artwork, how much is the quantity, concrete index, formwork, what's the total, and stuff like that. If you get into details of a particular element, you would be able to produce those quantities as well. So with that being said, let's just conclude our session here. Mr. Adnan, we can have a question and answer session for very quickly. Maybe I can answer a few questions. We are really tight on time.
Yes, Samim.
Yes.
Yeah. So shall we move to the question answering session?
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. So anyone of you have any question to this Samim, you can just raise your hands. I will unmute you. And by the meantime, all of you can even switch on your video.
So let me turn on the camera as well, I believe. Everyone.
I think I'm visible, right?
Hold on, I just lost connection. Okay. Yeah. Yes, you are.
Right. So all the other participants can actually switch on the video and let's have an interactive session. And we just need the feedback about how things are going, and we are putting a lot of effort actually. Even Samim has taken out a time from his busy schedule even in this COVID-19 pandemic. So we are really grateful for you that you have put in so much effort and time in making these presentations and giving your time and explaining students and professionals about what exactly BIM is and how we are moving towards and what automations are happening in the industry right now. So I think like no one actually share these kinds of actual real information which is there, right? People need to understand about it.
Absolutely.
So I really feel great, like people like Samim who are giving their time in interaction and giving the contents and sharing the right thing and helping people to learn and grow together. So I believe that's what the motive of iWorkstation is also about. So all of you can switch on your video. And anyone want to ask some questions, you can just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Anyone? Yeah, Vipul.
Vipul, come on.
Yes, Vipul. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Where are you from, Vipul?
Actually, I'm from India, but right now I am in the UK.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's nice.
I'm doing my master in construction project management.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just ask you that is it helpful in the UK or not?
Yes, I will take it over from here. Yes, it is. We have, I don't know if you know about MECCSS software, quite popular in the UK. So they are in collaboration with us. So they have this software in the market. So various companies are using this software in UK. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Not a problem. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anyone else? Shabaz, Saurabh. I see few of my students are also in the session. Shoaib, hi. Bima, yeah. Yes, Bima. I think you are not audible, Bima. If you can just remove your earphone and use the actual microphone of laptop or mobile, that will be much better.
Is this for only civil services or any mechanical elements also can we take up the quantity? For the mechanical equipments, we don't have shown anything.
Yes, I would say, yeah, there is software for MEP, which is TME, Takeoff for Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing. Why I didn't show it now is because, of course, one, there is less time. Two, there is an updated version which is coming up next month. So I would like to probably just give you information one-to-one, and we can have an introduction. But yes, it's a great tool there. It identifies automatically from the legends itself, all of those MEP elements, and it builds up the 3D model and get the quantities done. Thank you, Mr. Bema.
Yeah, Shabaz, Saurabh, Rajesh. Hello. Long time. Hi, Rajesh.
Hi, Adnan.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to ask you, like, for the Revit models, is it like possible for, say, kind of a residential project or a commercial project, just with say Revit, or just with say bad PDF files? Like right now, the which when you showed was kind of from AutoCAD files, but like if you have a raster PDF, how can I do that? Is it possible?
Yes, yes. I believe I answered that question already. But yeah, to add to that talk, it's basically if you have Revit model, either it's single model or federated model with different domains, you can use both the models. But of course, there are few conditions that you need to follow, which means that you cannot have overlap all the time, because then the software tends to tell you, oh, okay, these are the errors. So you need to then fix those errors. So things like this. And there is guidelines of how you actually have to build up the BIM model in order to feed into the software. But yeah, it takes information from the Revit, either it's federated or it's a single model. At the same time, if you have, as you say, PDF, if you have IFC from any other software, that works out well as well. But why we included Revit other than IFC is because of the fact that when you have Revit model, you have more information. You have IFC model, some of the informations get loose along the way. So yeah, you can utilize both the models.
Is there a live link between, say, kind of Revit or say ArchiCAD or any other like authoring tools, something like that?
Live link is not there at the moment. You have to have a model and you have to work it out inside of the software only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome. I think there's a question in the chat box as well. If you can pick up something from there as well.
Is there a software for learning purposes?
Which means, in other words, you're asking for a student version.
Yeah, student
trial version. Okay. To be honest, you know what? The idea is that because we as QS, we are not modelers or BIM modeling person who has a lot of experience. So that is why we tend to don't give away software and then people come back with bad feedbacks, because of the fact that programs where you can get yourself involved and you get the license for a long time for your learning. But that's separate. But we don't have direct trial version is because of this fact, because the tools are different.
There's one more question from the chat box. Nazir, which is good practice? Collaborate architecture and structural elements in the Revit itself before starting Takeoff or after importing to the QB cost? Did you get the question, Samim?
Sorry, the connection is really bad. I missed out half of your question.
Yeah, actually the question was which
No, I got only half of your question.
Yeah, I was saying the question was which is the good practice to collaborate architectural and structural elements together in Revit itself before starting the Takeoff or after importing to the QB cost? I mean, he's asking about what's the workflow.
Okay. So both ways it actually works out well, because it really comes down to, if you have a complete BIM workflow for your entire project, then I would recommend to go ahead with the Revit model, because you have one model for everything. But then if you're just implementing the software and only for the purpose of cost management, then you tend to just utilize the software using the 2D drawings which you receive. And most of the cases, at least here in Bahrain or throughout the Middle East, we get to see that people tend to use 2D drawings most of the time. So utilizing functions like automated, identification and building up the BIM model is really useful out here. I don't know if you have already in your project really complete BIM execution plan, then in there you implement the software within that tools. So yeah, that's a separate topic. But as far as the quantities are concerned, you can do the quantification either from 2D drawings. There are actually, I didn't cover that, but there are 2D tools available inside of the software as well, which is quite useful for external works. Let's say a landscaping area, or an area, a parking area, how many parking lots are there? So you don't tend to have a 3D model of that. You have a surface, but that is really up to you if you want to build that model. If you skip that as well, you can still go ahead with 2D identification. So that again meets the requirement of the user-friendly people who are actually accustomed to 2D takeoff using different tools like Costex or Bluebeam and other softwares. So yeah, it serves both the purpose.
There's a one question from my side, Samim. I think like it would be the question from most of the freshers or the students. So I think like a lot of people who are pursuing construction management or civil or architecture or whichever the field they are into the AEC domain, right? So they are getting to know about what exactly BIM is. And a lot of people are actually jumping to the software side, like understanding and working on AutoCAD, then learning Revit, then Navisworks, and so many other different tools which are there in the industry, right? But it's quite difficult for these people to actually learn from the basics, like modeling things, everything. But as a CQB course, which is actually automating the entire modeling procedure. So will this expertise will be like some people are there who are senior Revit modelers. So maybe after they are having 5 years experience or 4 years experience. So let's say after 1 or 2 years, what do you think would be the scenario of these people? Are these people will be jobless, or are these people will have to upgrade themselves into a new software, or how things will happen in the industry? Like, I think that's the most important question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things actually I wanted to take up on. So automation, if you look at automation in construction 4.0 industrial revolution, it's the ultimate goal. So people are, even if you look at Revit in 2021 version, they implemented a lot of new tools. In 2020, you got to see the PDF drawing import, and different tools are getting inside of it. So the ultimate goal is to get into automation. Now, the people who are expert in modeling, they tend to have expertise on a certain level of building up the BIM model. So they have all the knowledge of the model, which means that it's gonna help them in their workflow rather than taking away their jobs. And that's what my understanding is because you have a much better software tool, which is speeding up your process of work rather than letting you just sit back and let the software do it for yourself. It's not happening by the software. You still have to have manpower, and that's what BIM is all about. You have the process, you have the manpower involved, and you have the software tools. So it's not just a software tool which is doing all the BIM, and I'm sure you know much better than that. So yeah, so to answer your question, I would say that every tools that is being getting connected to the equation is basically making sure that the platform is getting connected between different domains and departments and stakeholders so that everyone is connected. It's basically, you can see nowadays, you have, up until now, we have informations of a particular project in WhatsApp, somewhere in emails, so something is happening, the work update is somewhere, and then you have the planning schedule, which is again in another file. So you don't have a complete database, you don't have a central place, and that is again separate topic of big data and everything else. But to start with, I would say every technologies that we are looking at today should have a foundation. So if I look at it, I tend to believe that the BIM or building information modeling is the foundation of all of these technologies, because you have information in one place. Even if you deploy a robot, for instance, he or she or the particular machine has to know that these information are coming from a central model. You have to have information. So yeah, it is going to help, I believe.
Thank you, Samim. I think that answers my question. We'll take one more question from the chat. There's a question from Vima. He wants to ask, like, as per your experience, which stage will be more useful for this software, means for the QBCOS software, and how it will be more value addition to any organization, and at which stage in construction project life cycle. So I mean, he wants to ask, like, at which stage of the project life cycle this QBCOS software will be more useful.
Okay, perfect question. I actually, skip out a lot of information because we have so limited time. So I didn't talk about the part of post-contract. So if you are a contractor, it's a great tool because you have a lot of suite for post-contract. You get to see the revision function is there. There is segmentation function, which is gonna split up different subcontractor zones, and that is gonna say, okay, this so-and-so subcontractor has done this much of work, so this is his progress claim number 1. That's his payment on this date, that date. So it's again automating this process. You are getting all this information inside of QBCOS software. So that's all coming in post-contract as far as the contractor is concerned. There are in the industry, we have clients, we have consultants, we have contractors. All of them are using QBCOS, which means that everyone has got their inputs, and which is again helping the software to move forward, and getting the feedbacks from them and improve the software so throughout the time. What's important to notice is that when you have, if you are a consultant, by the way, so you have different work stages of your complete project. Now in that work stages, you are basically developing your complete design. Okay, so that design is, of course, you are doing most of the work in AutoCAD, for instance. But then, throughout this process, side by side, you are preparing, as I mentioned, the cost plan, 1, 2 different orders of cost estimates. And so these are the informations that you can directly generate from the modeling using QBCOS. So this is where the consultants are using the software. And then at the later stages, when it gets to the tendering stage, then you have the same model, improved model. And LOD, that again pretty much works with different LODs. So it is not that the software is meant to have a design model with different LODs, but what I mean to say is that you can have different LODs and you have the information of quantities in there. So I believe that answers part of the question, if not everything.
One more question, Samim. Can we use this for, say, kind of PEB structures or, say, kind of warehouse projects? Is it possible?
Yes, it is. There are still elements, structural elements available in the software, which are again sections, pretty much standard section, either UK or India. You have all of these different sets of structural elements, so you can utilize them in your project. And obviously, in steel structure, you tend to have braces and different other elements which is coming along with your beam and column. So these elements, again, quantification is inside of the model. So yes, it is useful.
Samim,
just someone is also asking, can this be used in infra projects like railways and highways and bridges?
Okay, the most important part that we couldn't cover actually, the excavation. So yeah, in excavation, you tend to have, let's say as an example, in India in particular, I'm from northeastern parts, so we have a lot of hills. Everyone knows about it. Now, if you work in Northeast, you tend to have different elevations all the time. You have to cut and fill all the time in any project. It's not a smooth surface anyway. So in that kind of scenario, you have to have a software which is giving you all of these quantities. But that is Civil 3D, most part we talk about it. But then if you look at this particular, this software in particular, QBCOS, we don't have any of this information, unfortunately. It just considers the average of contours that you have from topographical map. So you can have a contour average for a particular area, and that is giving you the quantities. There is no cut and fill which means that you cannot utilize it in infrastructure works. But there is another software for that. That is also under QB cost, under development, can't talk about it, but it's going to come soon.
Cool, got it. Like I see Samim, let's say I don't know about QB cost. I don't know what is the workflow or how I can use it in the BIM industry. So someone like me, if I want to learn QB cost, so how should I learn? How should I start learning?
Well, first of all, I would find it very difficult to actually believe that you understand this. But yeah, if it comes down to a person who has no idea about BIM, for me, I just look at it as Excel and AutoCAD combination. So I believe most of our participants today are well aware or equipped with AutoCAD at least and Excel. So as I mentioned, the shortcut keys, functionalities, everything is similar to AutoCAD. And then on the top of it, you have those the tables where you can actually apply formulas in it, which is again coming to the Excel. So if you know Excel and you know AutoCAD, then I believe that is it. I mean, you can get it get on board within a month probably, to start a new project. And the training is really detailed, and we have different training setups, but that's a separate topic. And that actually accommodates everything, every tool that you can think of. And once you start utilizing the software in one particular project, there is project guidance, a lot of other stuff basically to give you information with. And by the way, in India, I'm not sure, I mean, Mr. Adnan, you can share some information about which companies are using. I believe big companies are using in India.
Yeah, I can tell you, like 2 days back only, I received a call from one of the team members of sales guy from the QB Cost in India. So they have the branches in Pune, in Noida, in Gurgaon, in Bangalore as well, and 1 or 2 more places. So as far as I discussed with him, so he said like there are a good number of people who are actually using QB Cost, and there's one company called as Godrej. I think like many of you are aware about Godrej. Okay, so this is the number 1 company which is using the QB Cost. Other are few companies, I didn't remember the name actually, but like they are in discussion with almost all the popular companies like L&T, Shapoji, whichever the companies are there in the market as of now in Indian construction industry. They are in touch with those people. So someday or the other, they will also be utilizing this QB Cost in their workflow. But I am only concerned about, my main mission is the employment factor, the number 1. Okay, so
Yes.
I believe like people should learn everything, but they should also be employable enough. That's the important thing, right? So my question is only how many companies are utilizing this software, number 1, and how many requirements or job requirements are there in the market for QB Cost or any kind of tools which are coming up with the market. So that's the
Yeah.
main thing. So I see you are already working in Bahrain, and QB Cost has a good network in Bahrain, and a lot of companies are already utilizing it. Am I right, Samim?
Yes, absolutely. There are many big contracting companies. I mean, I can name all of them. And then there are also QS consultants. There are design consultants who are using the software. And on the top of it, you have a few clients who are also utilizing. But mostly, if I say Singapore is their headquarter. So, I mean, you can say most of the Singapore companies are using, most of the big companies, Arcadis, and you can go on and on. In India, however, I missed to tell you that Neo Group or Neo Cost Consultant, I'm not sure if somebody is aware of that. That's a big company as well. So they are using, so NEYO Group, and that is one of them. And then Shapurji, I'm not sure if they are using in India, but they have the software in Middle East. So Shapurji Middle East, yes, they are using QB Cost.
One more question I have, Samim, like as you are in Bahrain, right?
Yes.
You are an Indian. Like, how did you got an opportunity to move to Bahrain?
Oh, yeah, big story. I mean, everyone who are experienced, they can tell. I mean, every struggle counts. It's just about struggle. It's just about learning. So it's just about taking steps. You know, you never you never step back from the opportunities that you have in life. And on the top of it, whenever you have some learning resources, you don't miss out that. Don't think short term, think long term of anything. Like, let's say for QB, you have to look 5 years after today. What's going to happen in the industry? Is it going to be an automated, BIM Takeoff for every project? If that's the case, then you should definitely look into it. So things like this, you have to think ahead of time and try to implement things from scratch when it's really new in the market. So yeah, I believe that's the bottom line that I have. But for me, there are I can't find, to be honest, any Northeast people here. It's really hard. We Northeast people do not go outside, to be honest. We don't have people also probably in Pune or Maharashtra, even if there are very few. So yeah. It is
I have like 5 to 6 friends from Northeast itself. Like they are in like very developed countries and they are doing really great in the BIM industry. So like I cannot say like Northeast people are not good, or like maybe they are not moving out in Middle East. They are moving out, and every aspect of India have some different talents. That's what I believe. Northeast people have the different talents. Some people have the different culture. So that's fine. But yeah, that's not the case. Like Northeast people are not moving out. They are.
Oh no, I was just talking about Middle East. I tend to find less people in Middle East.
Yeah, less people in Middle. Okay, let's say nowadays it's pandemic, but a lot of people have their dreams to actually move out. Like Rajesh is in UK, right? You would be working over there. You're not in UK.
No, I'm in Finland and I'm moving to Germany.
Finland. Yes.
So, oh wow. Okay.
He's in Finland, and a lot of people are moving out of India and taking some education, maybe in construction, maybe in BIM, maybe in some of the technology, so that they can find a job. So I think like you also have taken some education, right, out of India, and then you have actually proceeded to this field. Like how you did?
For myself, I did engineering, basically BTech in civil engineering, and after that, I worked in Dubai. So that was my first opportunity. I was in Mumbai working first I started with cost consultant, then became site engineer, just the normal way we tend to grow after engineering. And then I got an opportunity, to be honest, in Dubai. He was a small contractor, and I was fortunate enough to get hired there. After that, I was working there and I realized that I have good potential in QS. So why don't I jump back to QS, which I was doing before. So then I thought of, okay, changing my field, get back to QS. Went back to India, worked in Hyderabad for 2 years. And then I came to Bahrain for good opportunity. And of course I have. And just one point to Mr. Rajesh, actually, just around this talk. So as you are in Finland, we have a research and development center there from QB in Finland. So I can probably send you details of that. You can have contact with them. Sure. By the way, do you speak Finnish?
Minä olen kiitos tapumista. That's it.
Very nice. Very nice. Good to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other question from the participants? Yeah, I think that's good enough. Like we will meet tomorrow, same time, 7 to 9 p.m. in the evening, and we'll be starting with new topics. Right? You want to add something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. No, as you said, everything. So that should be it. From my side, I would say, I would like to see every one of us, whoever was there today, in our next session, so that we can have everything together, and all the questions that we could not cover today, we will be able to practically see them tomorrow. At the same time, it was a really great privilege for me to able to share the BIM space with you, various experienced people amongst our participants. The reason why I actually started with multiple interconnected platforms is to show you and make sure that you get it quite simple manner, and then you contemplate that. On the top of it, so thank you. I really appreciate your presence, and really pleased that you shared your valuable time with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll meet tomorrow again, same time. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.